Oh yeah, baby, that's lovely.
We now wander off the beaten path with an update from the Reefer Reporter.
Hello and welcome to the Reefer Reporters with Glenn Prentice and myself, Al Graham. It's April the 14th, 2022, and we are live here from the Legacy420.com news desk on the People Advocating Cannabis Education Radio Network, found at paceradio.net. Good morning, Glenn, and how are we today?
Good morning. I'm doing great today. How are you?
Not too bad. I'm doing all right. Weather-wise, not so well.
We're a little gray, but it's not bad. It's not raining yet.
That's good. That's good. It's coming, though, man. It's coming.
I know it is. It's April. What can you do?
So did you build any guitars over the last week?
No, I've been too busy building decks.
Decks?
Yeah, do the front deck on my house. I'm trying to do that.
Oh, nice. Yeah, are you enclosing it, screening it off?
No, actually, I put a whole new deck on it, new railings. Now I'm doing a ceiling on it with drop lights and all kinds of stuff. So trying to make it look nice out the front of the house, right?
Yeah, that's right. And it's always nice to be able to sit out on a deck and enjoy, sit back, relax.
We sat out there last year, but it was on a big lean. You'd fall off if you rolled.
Yeah, we don't want any of that happening. So it's good. You got it all leveled up then.
Yeah, it's beautiful now. It looks brand new now.
Good. And you'll be able to enjoy it soon. Well, you've probably had some half decent weather, a little bit here and there.
It's covered, so you can go out there, as long as it's not raining too hard, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, rain. It's that time. It's that time of year. Talking about that time, it's time to get to the news. What do you say we get started?
Sure.
All right. First up, right here in Canada, we got Canada's 2022 federal budget aims to engage cannabis sector, according to Mugglehead magazine.
And last week, the federal government released the proposed budget for 2022, which outlines a series of new investments in several areas, including public health, housing, and infrastructure, and includes the section titled Engaging the Cannabis Sector.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
As a relatively new sector of the Canadian economy, it is important that the federal government and all stakeholders have a clear understanding of the challenges and opportunities that are facing Canada's legal cannabis sector, according to the budget document.
And the budget 2022 proposes launching a new cannabis strategy table that will support an ongoing dialogue with businesses and stakeholders in the cannabis sector. The cannabis sector is quickly emerged as one of Canada's fastest growing, uniquely positioned as a homegrown industry with an entirely domestic supply chain from seed to sale. I love that idea.
Yeah. According to the Cannabis Council of Canada, the nation's legal cannabis sector has created 50,000 jobs, contributed $15 billion to government revenue, and $45 billion to Canada's GDP since legalization in October of 2018. However, the federal dialogue surrounding cannabis has mainly aligned with public health and crime, which is true.
That's amazing numbers.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? That's big bucks.
45 billion. That absolutely amazes me.
Yeah. That's everything, right? When it comes to buying equipment and and all that stuff.
A huge impact on our economy, which is I love it. It's great.
Yeah, and that's only the third year.
Can you imagine what this is doing to the US when they see 45 billion? It changes a lot of people's minds.
Yeah. Money has changed a lot of people's minds when it comes to the cannabis end of things.
Yeah. Or it allows people to speak their minds. How's that?
Correct. Yes.
The federal strategy table to create opportunities for the government to hear from industry leaders and identify ways to work together to grow the legal cannabis sector in Canada, says the budget document, a shift that is welcomed by the Canadian Chamber of Commerce.
Yep, the proposal is something the National Cannabis Working Group put in its pre-budget submission and has been advocated for by the entire cannabis sector, according to policy advisor with Canadian Chamber of Commerce, Jared Cohen. He also went on to say that we are pleased to see this in the budget and look forward to the government industry cooperation in building a sustainable legal cannabis industry.
And while Health Canada has overseen the creation and interpretation of rules that regulate cannabis licensing, growing, packaging, and marketing, the Cannabis Strategy Table would be led by the Department of Innovation, Science, and Economic Development.
Oh, that's different.
Yeah.
Yeah. The ISED has a mandate to improve conditions for investment, enhance Canada's innovation performance, increase Canada's share of global trade, and build a fair, efficient, and competitive marketplace. The federal ministry already runs strategy tables for a number of other industries, including manufacturing, clean technology, agricultural foods, and then tourism. So they're going to throw cannabis in there as well.
Yeah, and I like that tourism is actually mentioned in that, being that it's kind of being discouraged in most of the world right now for cannabis tourism.
Well, I think they're doing that in the tourism industry right now, and I can see them adding the cannabis tourism part of all that tourism part.
It sounds like a good strategy to me.
Yeah.
The budget recognizes the scale and impact of cannabis sector, said George Smitherman, the Cannabis Council of Canada's president and CEO, in a statement. The promised launch of a cannabis industry strategy table at ISED is a means for our sector to contribute more to the public health, social, and economic goals of Canada.
The budget also includes some minor changes to the cannabis excise tax, allowing smaller licensed producers to remit excise duties on a quarterly rather than monthly basis, and permitting cannabis production licensees to transfer excise duty stamps between them.
Changes also include altering the penalty structure for lost excise duty stamps and allowing excise stamp agreements between licensed producers designed to address inventory management issues and inefficiencies in the supply chain for the cannabis industry.
I know that they've been lobbying the government to deal with that excise tax. They want it actually eliminated from things. They don't want it on there.
Yeah, it shouldn't be on there, and especially if the government has been touting this as a medical health issue, and I don't believe any medical or health issue should be taxed.
Yeah, well, the thing is they don't even have a medical. They're all the stores are recreational. So even though if you buy your suppositories for medical reason, you're using them recreationally.
Yeah,
So
and that makes no sense to me.
That makes no sense to me. I completely agree with you. Doesn't make any sense. All right, on to the next story. And the headline says that Canadian cannabis vape sales growth continues as consumers' preferences evolve.
The growth in vape market share continues amid declining prices and a consumer base that increasingly prefers larger cartridges filled with a gram of vape liquid instead of a half a gram format that initially dominated the market.
Yeah, you see the graph there?
Yeah.
Where they have it year over year, and you can see the how much the vape pens. They've gone up. They've gone up. So as concentrates have gone up, edibles have gone up, flour's gone down, pre-rolls over year this year they went down. Yeah. The growth in vape market share comes amid declining prices and a consumer base that increasingly prefers larger cartridges filled with a gram of vape instead. I think you already read that.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the outlook for continued growth in the vape segment remains bright, according to the industry executive. Now, Mike Lickver, president of Toronto-based cannabis producer and manufacturer Oxley Cannabis Group, said Canadian vape market share still lags behind more mature U.S. recreational cannabis markets, and he says, "I still think there's a lot of room for growth."
And Lickver believes Canada's cannabis excise tax structure and potential regulatory restrictions on vape flavors pose challenges for the segment going forward. And I've always said that I don't understand why they would ban the flavored vapes if an adult's using it. They're using the same argument that it entices children to vape because of the flavors, but adults have a choice in that, and it's illegal for them to do that. So I don't understand that.
I know, they say the flavors entice the youth, so they don't want the flavoring in there.
but it's illegal for the youth to use
To
that.
use it. Yeah, I know.
So the flavors are a moot point. It's a reason trying to find a problem.
Yeah, yeah, and they'll keep using that until I'm gonna say until maybe youth rates go down or something. I don't know, but
Yeah.
for now, and it's gonna happen. Who knows? Maybe in 15 years things will change, or
Yeah.
10 years, or whatever.
Yep.
So, all right, on with the story.
Adult use cannabis vape market in Canada, tracked by Headset, Alberta, British Columbia, Ontario, and Saskatchewan, was worth 473.6 million Canadian dollars in 2021, with more than 11.9 million units sold.
Wow, that's a lot. Of
Yeah.
them. Yeah. Canadian adult use vape pens hit the market at the end of 2019 alongside other so-called cannabis 2.0 derivative products like edibles and concentrates. Vape pens sales growth of 79% between 2020 and 2021 outpaced total cannabis market sales growth of 61%, indicating improved market share for the smokeless devices, according to Headset.
And they increased their relative market share by about 11%, 14.7% of sales in 2020 to 16.3% in 2021. Vapes, including batteryless cartridge filled with vape liquid and all-in-one disposable vape pens, were the third largest Canadian cannabis product category by market share in 2021, after cannabis flower and pre-rolls.
Because I'm a little bit surprised by that, only because there was all that scare that was going on about some of what was in them, and people were having issues with it. People were talking about popcorn lung and so on and so forth.
Yeah, and whatever happened with that is I don't hear it anymore.
No, exactly. I thought that might have dampened things down, but look, it's like it's the third most popular product.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully they've addressed that problem.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly. They say that the sales growth came as vape prices fell 35% over the course of the year, based on the price data that reflects different product size formats of cannabis products.
And that indicates that the prices are becoming more competitive, and also suggests a shift from half-gram vape cartridges to the 1 gram format. She observed in the U.S. cannabis market, such as California.
Yeah, well, the larger thing makes more sense. It's like
and I think as the prices
buying
go down, the market
quarter-gram.
share goes up.
Yeah, it's like buying quarter-gram joints.
Yeah.
I guess if you've only got time for a quick one,
Yeah.
the quarter-gram joint comes in handy. But you know how it is.
Yeah.
Now, Heather Huff Bogart, owner and operator of the independent retailer The Green Boutique Cannabis in Huntsville, has seen increased consumer interest in the 1 gram format, with a caveat. It comes down to the quality of the vape. A lot of people like the 1 gram vapes because it lasts them longer and it's more value for their dollar.
Everybody needs more value for their dollar now.
Yeah.
But also, there's lots of comments that the 1 gram gets clogged more often, she said. So a lot of people will go to the half gram so they don't have to deal with that. Oxley Cannabis, which holds a leading position in cannabis recreational vape market via multiple brands, was the first Canadian company to launch 1 gram vape cartridges in 2020.
Yep. And if you look, according to Lickverse, and if you look at the progression of that, I would say 60% of the cartridge market is now 1 gram format. So there's been a massive shift to larger format size. Now, he's added that Canadian consumers have also migrated towards strain-specific vapes with identical flavors, rather than vapes simply labeled an indica, sativa, hybrid, so on and so forth. I could see that. Cushions.
I think it's exactly the same in the dry flower.
Yeah.
Exactly. Everybody wants their flavor and how it affects them. They know, and they get to know it, and that's what they want.
Well, yeah, and that all comes down to terpenes, and we're going to get into that later on in the broadcast.
Yep. Lickver pointed out that falling Canadian vape prices in 2021 came amid increased competition in the segment. At the end of 2020, Lickford said Canada had 61 vape brands with 300 stock keeping units. By the end of 2020, there were 100 brands with 532 SKUs.
So the increase right there. At the
Yep.
same time, Lickford said the regulated industry is competing against illicit cannabis vapes. He says that we're still battling that fight every day, and that does trend into price compression in vapes. Absolutely.
And she believes the profit margins for some of Oxley's competitors in the vape segment are extremely thin, and said that keeping the segment profitable involves economies of scale and improving efficiency. Current federal cannabis excise taxes also pose a challenge, he suggested.
Yeah, he goes on to say, I think it's important to identify that we're paying close to $10 in excise tax for
Wow.
1 gram vape pen. So it's extremely
Wow.
difficult to continue with healthy margins if price compression continues on this trend. $10 in tax just on 1 pen.
Yeah, absolutely
Wow.
crazy. So what's the average cost of a pen, would you say?
I haven't got a clue. I've never looked into it. I've never
Yeah,
I've never
I'd be
bought one.
curious to find out.
Yeah, like $10 on a just that's what the government is charging, and that all gets thrown to us as a consumer.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure it
Yeah,
does.
yeah,
Lickver sees growth opportunities in the vape category by continuing to convert users from the illicit market that just comes with the price competition, which we already have. Convenience, delivery, all of those things are getting better day after day. That's true.
yeah. Now, headset analyst Ashley says the Canadian vape pen market share is holding steady so far in 2022, and the vape market share has remained above 17% since November of 2021. She says that if we're going to project based off some other more mature U.S. markets and their trends over time, there's definitely room for growth here.
Ontario retailer Huff Bogart sees a trend of vape shoppers seeking cartridges containing more of the live terpenes, something other than just THC. They're looking for the full spectrum vape products. They're starting to get more interested in the other offerings of vapes out there too.
Yeah, oh, I'm not surprised there.
Yeah.
Now, they also see a trend that says they say that I think we're starting to see more sophisticated users looking for a more true to plant experience, whether it's live resin, live rosin, liquid diamonds. You can look at to more mature markets, to see the trend that's happening there.
Now, what do they mean by live resin and live rosin? What's the difference between regular resin and regular rosin?
Oh, it's when it's being created. Like people usually take their plants and dry them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's the live rosin end where people are taking it and they're freezing it and then they're squishing afterwards. It's not actually getting to the point of dry blend. You can have too much moisture, but
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Lickver also sees increasing internet and vapes containing minor cannabinoids such as CBN and CBG. To date, vapes have been THC or CBD or a combination of those two of the dominant cannabinoids, he said.
Yeah, well, CBG is like basically it's the beginning of everything.
I don't know much about CBG. I've heard, CBD and THC my whole life, but CBG is new to me.
Yeah, it's basically what it is before it starts breaking into different, like the others, the THC and the CBD. And
okay.
Yeah.
So it's a more raw form, basically.
Yeah, and it has some benefits as well.
Wow.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Lisker has his eye on the Canadian regulatory changes that could restrict vape flavors, which we talked about earlier, and warning that such a move could impact the vape market significantly. Lickver also sees possibilities for new vape hardware formats beyond ubiquitous screw-on 510 thread cartridges.
And we think there's room for a more user-friendly, customizable, better user experience, he said. There's room for more technology, closed-loop systems, and eventually really an overhaul on the hardware side.
Yeah, Huff Bogart believes increased adoption of priority cannabis vape pods would require more education from producers to retailers like herself. She says that I think they would have to teach the retailer or get the retailer excited in turn for us to be able to sell it to the customer.
And because we would have to get them excited and curious about the products, for us to be bringing in that kind of new technology when everybody's so adapted to the 510 right now, or even the disposable vape pens.
Yeah.
People love their technology. They love
People
their
sure do. Yeah. They do. And it's good to see that she's commenting that people are being more, looking more than just the distillate end of things. They're looking for the full spectrum. They're looking for the terpenes
Yeah.
end of things.
More educated. That's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Now we're heading to Quebec. We're in Quebec. They say that they are still seeing significant number of illegal cannabis producers.
And despite the legalization of cannabis in Canada on October 2018, the Sûreté du Québec says it's still seeing a significant number of illegal cannabis producers in the province. Police officers from the SQ's Contraband Investigation Service say they started investigating after receiving information from the public about an illegal cannabis production and distribution network that appeared to be active in several sectors of Montreal.
They didn't really think that the illegal growing of cannabis was going to go away, did they? Anytime soon? Like, people still make moonshine.
Yeah, it'll be forever. It's never going away.
Exactly. Police officers from the SQ's Contraband Investigation Service say they started investigating. Oh, you mentioned that. Numerous searches were conducted in April and October 2020, resulting in the seizures of 1,000 cannabis plants, as well as 110 kilograms of cannabis in several of various forms, 38 kilograms of psilocybin, $1 million, and 23 firearms,
Wow.
some of which were prohibited.
And 2 arrests were made on Monday and 8 more expected on Tuesday. The Sûreté du Québec says it is working in collaboration with Revenue Quebec and Health Canada, among others. Revenue Quebec.
Yeah. Now the Health Canada and would be checking on licenses.
Yeah.
Police stress illegal cannabis production can feed the black market and generate revenues that can be used for financial criminal activities. Well, geez, they didn't worry about that for 85 or 90 years when it was legal, did they?
No, and I think a lot of the people that own businesses do illegal things too. I'm not talking about just the cannabis. I'm talking just generally in people.
In general.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. All right. On to our next story, number 4 for the day. And this one says, Eskasoni dispensary owner preparing to go to court to fight for his right to sell cannabis.
And the owner of a
way, isn't it, Glenn?
Pardon?
This is down your way?
Yes, it is. In Nova Scotia, it's about 3.5 hours away from me.
Yeah.
The owner of a cannabis dispensary in Eskasoni First Nations hopes the charges against him will be dropped before his trial this summer. But he said we will fight his case right to the very end. Albert J. Marshall, 49, is facing charges under the Provincial Cannabis Control Act for selling marijuana without being an authorized seller.
So basically, he's like what we're seeing around here, like Legacy 420 or the Medicine Wheel over in Alderville.
Yeah, the difference between
cannabis on the reserve.
The difference between him is this reserve has declared itself free of dispensaries.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, so do you know anything about this place?
I just read the story this morning.
Okay, all right. Well, let's continue on reading then.
Yeah, Marshall opened his dispensary, Bear Buds Trading Post, in the fall of 2020, more than 6 months after Eskasoni Chief Counsel issued a press release stating they would not approve or authorize any privately owned dispensaries to sell cannabis products.
There you go, and that would be basically they gave the police permission to go in and
that's they have to give the police permission to do that.
Yeah, and the police went in to shut them down. Okay.
Yeah, and there's other bands around the same areas that allow cannabis dispensaries.
Yeah.
So I think this guy has a real argument, I guess, on his side.
Mm-hmm. Being that other reserves allow it, why don't theirs? But then they may also look at it as, each reserve is allowed to govern themselves when it comes to the cannabis end of things.
It is true to a certain point, and I think each person has their own inalienable rights too. So it's a hard thing. The courts are going to have to decide.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and there's no way we're going to figure it out.
No.
All right, continue the story.
Okay, when we opened up, there was a moratorium on it that nobody was allowed to open up, but we did because legally we saw that you can, Marshall said. We talked to many First Nations throughout the country that were operating cannabis businesses, and we looked into this very carefully. We saw a need, and we wanted to offer the community an affordable, high-quality product right here in our community.
I know cannabis was legalized here in Canada, as we know, in 2018, and the federal government passed over responsibilities to provinces. And there it's regulated by the Nova Scotia Liquor Corporation, which is the only authorized dealer, they say.
Yeah, the only ones authorized are the government. Imagine that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's what we were going to have here at one time.
Yeah, you have a better system now than we have here, a much better system.
Yeah. Mind you, the stores are still authorized by the government. Like they're not run by the government, they're authorized by them. So.
Yes, but I like the idea of them having private people, private industry in there and not just government.
Yeah, exactly.
So, all right. The Assembly of Nova Scotia Mi'kmaq Chiefs, along with many other First Nations organizations and communities, has said the right to self-government is affirmed in Section 35 of the Constitution Act. Each community has the right and the authority to decide what is best for their members and how their laws are developed and enacted. What happens in the communities is under the leadership of their own chief and council, the Assembly said in a written statement.
So there you go. That's what I wanted. You know, each one's separate, right?
Yeah, I think the argument here is how much personal freedom do we have as opposed to what the government gives us, whether it's a First Nations government or the Canadian government.
Band council.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, here I'll keep reading along here. Chief Delroy Denny expressed concern over cannabis in Eskasoni after 2 incidents in which children accidentally ingested cannabis products in 2020. At that time, he said the band would open its own cannabis operation, but it was later confirmed by an NSLC spokesperson that a corporate store is set to open later this year and will include the sale of cannabis.
It sounds to me like they have no problem with the sale of cannabis. They have a problem with their own people selling it for some reason, and I don't understand
running it. We have that here in Ontario as well, is where some of the reserves have the government OSC authorized stores in them.
I don't understand why any band would allow the government to do something that they won't allow their own people to do. I don't understand that.
I know.
And that goes for the Canadian government too. Your own people should be able to do whatever you can do.
Yeah, and as you know, your bio, you're a carded Métis First Nation. Yeah.
Yep.
So
I agree with individual rights, I think. Yeah. Marshall, who's pleaded not guilty to the charges against him, is opposed to this approach and said he has an inherent right to sell cannabis in his community. Our people don't see it as a recreational drug. I don't even want to call it a drug to use. It's a medicine. We are just trading medicine the way we have been for thousands of years, and we have never given up our right to do that.
There we go. Now, member 2 held the community vote in December, in which it was decided that independently owned communities regulated to the ban would be allowed to operate in the community, which currently has more than 25 small retailers. So this must be a different location.
Yep.
Yeah.
Close by, but that's what he's talking about. I mean, they're allowed to do it in all kinds of reserves. But if the chiefs or the council decides that you're not, that means the whole reserve's dry. It reminds me of the 1930s kind of in the States.
Yeah, like you said, it's not, they don't seem to be against cannabis because they seem to want to allow the government store to come in.
They want the money. What their argument is the same argument that we've been hearing since we were little kids. It's about the health of other. It's about other people. It's health. It's your kids, and it's all to scare you. And I think these people have been indoctrinated for 40 years.
Yeah, it's too bad. It should be allowing the people the opportunity to benefit from this.
Yeah. Yep. I can't even say it. Mi'kmaq First Nation has also held community consultations and is in the process of enacting bylaws overseeing the cannabis market in the community. Marshall said he applauds those communities and would like to see his chief and council reconsider their approach to the regulation of cannabis sales on Eskasoni.
Yeah, he says that there's no discussion whatsoever. There was not even an attempt to have discussions, which isn't right because as leaders, you don't represent the inherent rights of the people and you don't sign them away without the consent of the people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I agree with him. Marshall says that he employed 8 people when his operation was running and that business was good, but the constant presence of RCMP officers and seizures of his inventory caused him to shut down in 2021.
Yeah, and he's renovating his small shop, which is situated on the shore just off Crane Cove Road, and is planning to reopen soon. He's already invested almost $100,000 into the business and said he's prepared to lose thousands more to continue his fight. I'm not going to lay down for this, he said.
And he goes on to say, if they want to, we'll go right to the end if we have to because nobody can define our rights or give us an interpretation of them. Only we can do that. We want people to understand their rights because we have limited opportunities on First Nation lands. And this is one thing that is self-funded and an economic opportunity.
And Marshall will be in court in Sydney on April 26th for pre-trial, and is scheduled to return for trial on the 23rd of August. Captain Chris Marshall of the RCMP said he would not comment on the case as it is before the courts, but said there have been 8 cannabis dispensaries charged in the First Nations communities in Nova Scotia, 3 on Eskasoni, all charged under the Cannabis Control Act, and 5 on reserve lands belonging to Millbrook First Nations, charged under the Federal Cannabis Act. He would not confirm whether any of the charges have resulted in convictions. And there is one thing that I find very funny here. These are the second charges for the Millbrook are under the Federal Cannabis Act. The federal government has no rights on the reserve. So I do not understand how they can be charged under a federal act that can't be enacted on the reserve.
Now, what if they were given permission as far as
the town council or the council, the reserve council
gave them permission to come on land?
Yeah, you can come on land, but then you're charging someone with a federal crime, which basically gives control away to the federal government again.
Well, is there not federal laws that are?
Well, there is for murder and things,
Yeah, exactly.
Course, right? But things like this, I think there's no teeth in the federal government charging like federal crimes on a reserve like that.
Yeah, I haven't got a clue. I know there's that argument that they weren't First Nations weren't involved in the discussions and all that. Yeah. So who knows? Yeah. All right. Last story before we go to break, and this one says, can the DEA-backed cannabis growers strike gold via drug development?
And the cannabis industry hit a possible milestone in March when Bright Green Corp, a Florida company with conditional approval from the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration to grow marijuana for research purposes, applied to list on the NASDAQ stock exchange. If successful, Bright Green would become the first U.S. plant-touching company to list on a major U.S. stock exchange.
Yeah. But the move also highlights the lofty, some say unrealistic, financial ambitions of such companies. And it raises the questions on whether a business model based on DEA approval is realistic with a financial standpoint.
The 5 entities registered with the DEA as bulk manufacturer marijuana growers are allowed to grow and sell cannabis flower and extract to researchers registered with the federal agency. Those researchers can be at universities, pharmaceutical companies, and other entities.
Yeah, the University of Mississippi received the first DEA cultivation registration in 1968, while 4 more entities received registrations in 2021. Look at that gap. Look at that huge gap in time in there, where it was just one place supplying the government or any researchers cannabis, including the patients, because there was patients that were getting federal cannabis that were sent to them, in the tins. They're already pre-rolled joints and everything. But yet that cannabis was still old, and the cannabis that's being researched is old. So it's good to see that they finally allowed some other people to grow cannabis other than this one place, but there's still more work that needs to be done.
And we've been talking about this for years. The U.S.
Yeah,
has pretty
yeah,
well given up on anything to do with cannabis for decades.
yeah, yeah. All right,
Uh,
continue on.
3 of the other 4 entities that have secured DEA approval are private companies, while Scottsdale Research Institute in Cave Creek, Arizona, is a nonprofit focusing on determining the general medical safety and efficacy of cannabis and cannabis products.
Other entities such as Fort Lauderdale-based Bright Green was vying for additional registrations, although it's not clear if or when the DEA will issue any more. In addition to making money through the cultivation of cannabis for scientific research, at last 3 of the DEA-approved companies hope to further capitalize on cannabis-based drug development.
And they are Biopharmaceutical Co. in Casterville, California, Groff North America in Red Lion, Pennsylvania, Royal Emerald Pharmaceuticals in Hot Springs, California. How can such drug development be a money winner?
The answer? By partnering with pharmaceutical companies and multi-state operators to develop drugs approved by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration that could be sold by prescription or even over the counter. So synthetic ones. Yeah.
I thought there was no medical use for this drug, according to the U.S.
Well, there's Nabalone that you can get down in the U.S. and it's based out of a cannabis plant, and the same as Savitex is cannabis based and it's been approved. It's actually got some whole plant extract in it. But yeah, other than that, it's just been basically just the Nabalone was a chemically done version of it.
Yeah, which from what I've heard is nobody wants to use and nobody liked it. No, it didn't work.
Yeah, well, there was one of the documentaries. I'm not sure which one it was that we used to show at the Grindhouse. There was like one of the doctors says nobody said to me, I prefer the pharmaceutical THC over the plant cannabis or plant THC.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Conceptually, the opportunity is phenomenal. If you total up all the pharmaceutical sales for the indications that cannabis can address, like sleep, pain, nausea, etc., it's $330 billion a year market. There's lots and lots of activity to be had in this pharmaceutical facilitator area, said George Grisby, CEO of Groff North America. But he added, you have to be patient because it takes several years to get through the FDA process.
Sue Sisley, head of the Scottsdale Research Institution, which is among the 5 DEA cannabis cultivation registrants, said business models based on the DEA registrations are bound to fail. The entities who are trying to build a business model around these few research registrations won't be successful, she says. The demand for research cannabis is minimal.
I think she's on the wrong track here. I think this will be very successful, and not for the reasons that they're using. I think this will be very successfsuccessful in the consumer market, not necessarily the medical. I think they're trying to transition to a regular market.
Yeah, she's been a researcher for many years. She's been dealing with PTSD with veterans and things.
Yeah.
She actually lost her job over part of it too.
Wow.
Yeah, I've got her listed at the PACE website as one of the researchers.
Yeah, I think she's just a little off on this because I don't think these companies are doing it for what they're saying they're doing it for. That's the thing.
Yeah, well, I think there's a possibility. The article might touch on this, whether it becomes an option that doctors would give patients instead of nasty pharmaceutical drugs.
Yeah.
Be more maybe to replace the opioids or to reduce the amount of opioids. They would give them a cannabis pill instead.
Yeah, I think you're right there. This is not a lucrative business model and never will be. It takes 10 years to develop drugs that get FDA approval and is massively more complicated when it comes to agriculture products that have complex chemical composition with tons of different bioactive molecules. Wow.
Yeah, exactly. It was also the only entity to have such a permit last year when the DEA issued permits to the 4 new registrant holders. The decision and process to increase the number of cannabis cultivation registrants was started at the end of the Obama administration. It stalled under the Trump administration and restarted under Biden again.
Wonder why. The University of Mississippi did not return calls seeking comment. The 3 DEA authorized growers focus on drug development aimed to partner with a pharmaceutical company or other FDA approved entity. The goal is to create and manufacture cannabis products approved by the USDA.
I'm not surprised. Yep, exactly. George Hodgkin, founder and CEO of Biopharmacological Research, says that our business model is to develop a product with a DEA licensed individual or a department in a pharmaceutical company and then sell that product under that pharmaceutical company's brand name or our brand name.
And the company harvests its first cannabis trial crop earlier this year. The second crop will be sold to researchers. So I guess they didn't sell the first crop at all?
They're going to keep it for themselves and then sell the second one.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
Hodgkin said BRC is already partnered on research with the University of California, Davis Washington State University, and Cure Pharmaceuticals, a publicly traded biotech company based in Oxnard, California.
Yeah, Hodgkin says it. So we're absolutely heading down the drug development path. There is not a lack of demand in the market. We think a lot of biotech companies and pharmaceutical companies, although they aren't necessarily advertising an interest in cannabis, see the writing on the wall that there are therapeutic applications.
And finally see the writing on the wall.
Yeah.
Groff North America, whose first harvested yielded 63 pounds, sees a future where it can be the legal conduit for companies, including MSOs, to take cannabis-based formulations that have been successful in state markets through the FDA drug-approved process and commercialization.
Yep. It says that we can work with MSO to take their favorite product and bring their product in internally on Groff, and then be that conduct for them to move that product through the FDA approval if they want to make it into a real drug. And if a drug eventually wins FDA approval, Groff and its partners would have to negotiate how to split the revenue.
That would be an arrangement between us and the MSO, which would be a mutually satisfactory contract. Groff also possesses a DEA registration that allows it to export cannabis to researchers. I guess export to other countries, that means?
Maybe. The company recognizes it can develop drugs with companies in legal foreign cannabis markets, but we still need to set up a proper legal structure to make it for all that to happen.
Yeah, and he believes that the FDA becomes more familiar with cannabis. It would eventually even approve over-the-counter cannabis drugs. The safety profile of cannabis is very favorable, Grissom said. So one would envision that as the federal government gets more comfortable with cannabinoid-based therapies, that you would go from a prescription maybe to an over-the-counter at some point in the future. And that's where the big money is right there. No prescription.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, being able to do it without going over the counter, like just buying it by walking into a drug store or whatever. I know here in Canada, they talk about CHPs, which would be cannabis health products, and you know, something that's just got CBD in a lotion. Go to a store and just buy it at Shoppers or whatever, Guardian Drugs, and be able to purchase it there instead of going to a cannabis store. So
I don't know why you have to go to a cannabis store for that anyway.
I know it's a medical base as far as I'm concerned when it's like that. So just so you know, I closed off that story, wrapped that up. We're getting a little long on the tooth here, so I thought, wow, we better go to break. All righty. Okay, so it's medication time, which means that you're going to hear from our sponsors and you're going to see about them. And Glenn and I'll be right back after the break. You're listening or watching the Reefer Reporters here on the Pace Radio Network. You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
Growing your own cannabis is easier than you think. Whether you're growing for recreational or medical purposes, BMA Hydroponics has everything you need to succeed. From the standard 4-plant recreational systems to the latest cutting-edge hydroponic equipment, BMA can customize your package and do it at discount prices. Visit BMA Hydroponics at 404 Maitland Drive in Belleville and ask us for a free estimate. Or call 613-967-9888 and we will give you an estimate over the phone.
The only way to go.
In February of 2022, the Victoria Cannabis Buyers Club and Ted Smith were fined $6.5 million. This for helping 8,500 patients with access to medical cannabis. In our interview with Ted, he spoke to us about how people can donate to help in an upcoming court challenge. And here is part of that interview. From what I've seen lately, I believe that you've got something that you're trying to do as far as fundraising to deal with this next court challenge.
For now, people can write checks directly to Jack Lloyd Law Corporation or send e-transfers to save the VCBC at gmail.com. I guess those are the two easiest ways for people to help right now.
What do you find at paceradio.net? People advocating cannabis education.
A doctor's job is to relieve your pains. And when it comes to growing cannabis, the biggest pain is trimming. Let Dr. Buck Cannabis Trimming Solutions take the pain away. Whether you're a home grower or a commercial operation, we have the cure. From 4 plants to 400 plants, garden size doesn't matter. Dr. Buck Cannabis Trimming Solutions comes to you with years of experience and professional discreet service. It's simple. We trim your weed and we do a damn good job. Visit drbuckcts.com to book your trimming.
Did you know that the Pace Radio Network isn't just a radio network? That's right, because most, but not all of our programming is now done via video and is then podcasted at paceradio.net. So if you want to watch our programming, you'll find us on the Pace Radio Network's Facebook page, plus the show's own page, and you'll find us live on the network's YouTube channel. And don't forget, you can find it all, video and audio, at paceradio.net.
At Legacy 420, we believe in being different.
Experience the difference of quality control.
Our labs provide tested formulations for all of our products.
Experience the difference in trust.
Our customers can trust that we are following up-to-date COVID precautions for their safety.
Experience the difference in accessibility.
We're open 7 days a week. Please visit our website, legacy420.com, or contact us for curbside pickup as well as nationwide mail order shipping.
Legacy 420 values overall wellness.
Come and experience the difference of Legacy 420.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net. Hey, we're back for our medication session, and we are the Reefer Reporters. And if you miss our live shows, don't forget they're always available afterwards at our website, paceradio.net or reeferreporters.com. You'll find them there. All righty, Glenn, we've got 5 more stories to cover. And earlier in the broadcast, we were talking about tourism. So I think this next story goes right there. And if you're living in Canada or if you're living over in Europe and you're going to head over to the U.S., you'd probably like to know where you can go and get some cannabis, right? So we happen to have a story here. 10 great U.S. cities for weed lovers in 2022.
And thanks to the never-ending pandemic and more opportunities to telecommute, many Americans are picking up and moving. If you're a weed lover, you may want to consider these cities. The last few years have proven to be a time change for many Americans, whether it's starting a new job or starting over in a new city. Because of this, along with growing legality of marijuana, previously under the radar cities have skyrocketed in popularity.
Yeah, moving is not always enjoyable, but if you happen to love weed and are looking for somewhere new to live, there are several cities in the U.S. that might be a good fit. So here's 10 of them. So let's, depending on how big the comment is underneath them, let's go through them.
Sure. Anchorage, Alaska. Cannabis enthusiasts who love the wilderness and don't mind extended winter night might want to consider looking North Alaska. While conservative leaning in several respects, was one of the first states to legalize recreational marijuana. Anchorage is the most populated city in Alaska. It has plenty of great restaurants and dispensaries. but the great outdoors is never far away in America's 49th state.
I guess it's not. Ann Arbor, Michigan, historically known as a college town, Ann Arbor, Michigan is becoming a very cool small city to live in, especially now that cannabis is legal in Michigan. It has many of the conveniences of a city, but still has a small time vibe for those who don't love the hustle.
Chicago, Illinois, the Windy City smells a lot like cannabis these days. Cannabis is now legal in this major metropolitan city, and its citizens have embraced it. Chicago is known as quite a foodie city, and the city's dining scene features some of the greatest cannabis cooks in the country.
Nice. Cooks,
Yeah.
cannabis cooks. Colorado Springs, Colorado. While you hear a lot about Denver being one of the top cannabis destinations, there's another city in Colorado that might be worth looking into. The Springs has an active energy and also has more favorable weather year-round. This makes it possible to enjoy the outdoors for the entire year, unlike some higher elevation locations. And this is cheaper.
And Las Vegas, Nevada. Entire neighborhoods seem to be popping up in Las Vegas overnight. The city has seen a major influx of residents. Real estate is much cheaper in Vegas, and there's a lot to do. Just as neighborhoods keep appearing, so do cannabis dispensaries. Vegas is quickly becoming one of the top destinations for cannabis tourism and doesn't plan to slow down anytime soon.
Portland, Oregon. Portland is known for its progressive nature, delicious food, and youthful nature. These qualities are all perks for those who love cannabis. Portland is one city that continues to get creative with it, and it is woven into much of its hip culture. That, combined with the fact that U.S. News has yet again ranked it one of the top 10 places.
Wow. San Diego.
Live.
Yeah, that's great, eh?
Yeah. Go ahead.
San Diego, California. While Los Angeles and San Diego are both great SoCal cities for those who love cannabis, San Diego has a slight edge. While it's still a major city, there is slightly more laid-back vibe. San Diego, although quite expensive, is slightly cheaper than LA, making it the top destination for cannabis enthusiasts looking to relocate to sunny California.
Yes, or you go to San Francisco, which is synonymous with cannabis and its legalization. This famously liberal city was the pioneer in early cannabis legalization, and there are a plethora of dispensaries throughout the city. San Francisco is notoriously expensive, but if price is not a concern, it really is a weed mecca for those on a quest to find it.
And Santa Fe, New Mexico. New Mexico recently legalized cannabis, and its most beautiful city has become a great option for cannabis-inclined home seekers. Santa Fe has stunning landscapes, a plethora of art museums, a liberal laid-back vibe, and now cannabis.
Yep. Seattle, Washington. Coffee and weed go so well together. And actually, I know a song by that. Well, actually, a couple of songs by that. And no place does coffee and cannabis quite like Seattle. The city is rich in caffeine as it is in culture. In addition to being a progressive city, it is famously known for being clean and green.
Clean and green.
Yeah.
Seems to be a theme.
Sure does. Sure does. Oh, there you go. So now I know you probably don't have them all memorized off the top of your head, but did you find one that hey, I'd like to go there?
I would actually love to go to Alaska.
Alaska?
Yeah, I want to go when it's warm though, not cold. But I really would love to go there.
Does that exist?
Well, I hope it does. In my own head, it does. I'm not really a fan of the southern states, a lot of it, and a lot of these cities seem to be in the southern states. So my pick is Alaska, just for the wildlife and the scenery.
Oh yeah. Nice. All righty. Talking about cities. Our next city is this next story here is talking about a city it's sort of an update of a story that we talked about before. And that is the fact that Amsterdam Mayor to move ahead with tourist cannabis cafe ban. You know, here we're just talking about tourism to go to places, and here we got Amsterdam's mayor saying, "Don't come here."
Yeah, it seems to be a backwards move to me. But the authorities, pardon?
It sure does. It sure goes backwards.
The authorities may soon close Amsterdam's cannabis cafes as coffee shops and tourists to Amsterdam's mayor Famke Halsema has unfolded the plan to make such a move.
According to Halsema, the move is the only option in order to get a grip on the local soft drug market. In this regard, Halsema said to city councils that there is a worrying interdependence between the soft as well as the hard drug trade, while stressing the money from the lucrative cannabis trade can easily lead to hard drugs.
Same thing we've been hearing for 50 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Many of the major problems in the city are fueled by cannabis market, from nuisance caused by drug tourism to serious crimes and violence. Banning sales to tourists is a necessary intervention and the first steps towards regulation, she pointed out, as reported in Dutch news. And I bet you this will be reversed soon after it's done, because tourism dollars speak loudly.
I'm really perturbed by this, because that means they're accusing all the tourists that come just for cannabis there of all this problem.
Yeah, and in my experience in my life, cannabis users aren't usually the cause of a lot of problems.
Yeah, maybe look somewhere else, I think, but continue on.
Yeah, research has revealed that only 66 of the 166 licensed coffee shops in Amsterdam are needed in order to meet the local demand. So in other words, she's saying 100 businesses have to close for her to enforce this.
Yeah. Now, according to Haslima, imposing a ban would be the best measure in order to ensure the cannabis market continues to be manageable while experiments with the production of regulated cannabis get underway.
And the mayor has also initiated a campaign against street dealing, which among others includes warning signs, increased camera surveillance, as well as the use of hosts to warn tourists regarding the risks in Amsterdam. Wow.
Authorities in the Netherlands have continuously attempted to impose effective measures in order to deal with the current problem after the country is among the most favorable destinations in Europe.
And the reason why they're one of the most favorable destinations is because of the liberal laws. Yeah. Previously, research conducted by the country's government revealed that 58% of the international tourists who travel to Amsterdam chose the Netherlands capital in order to consume drugs, or maybe just cannabis, according to Halsema. At the same time, another study revealed that Amsterdam would support even fewer than 70 coffee shops if locals were only served.
Amsterdam is an international city, and we wish to attract tourists, but it's for its richness, its beauty, and its cultural institutions, the mayor pointed out in this regard, stressing that the cannabis market was too big and had too many links to organized crime.
The cannabis market was too big. Wow.
Yeah.
I wonder how Amazon feels about that.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously countries are looking at legalizing cannabis to cut down on crime.
Yeah, to cut down on crime.
And here they're blaming cannabis for crime.
Yeah, and here they're saying the market is too big.
Too big.
So they're going to close down 100 profitable businesses.
Yeah, and so they, countries like such as Canada, they're legalizing cannabis in order to take it away from the illicit market.
Yeah,
it looks like these guys are like, why they've got this experimental program on that we've reported on before, where they're going to experiment for 5 years to make it legal for that amount of time. Well, that's going to reduce the organized crime end of things. The sales, as far as, the growers, that's, sort of what we're seeing here, where they're clamping down on the big grows.
And I would like to know, how do you even enforce this? Do you have to go to every coffee shop there and ask people for ID to see if they're a tourist?
And tourists might not, who knows? Maybe they're going to have ID at the door.
Well, then, I think that's an invasion of your privacy right off the bat.
Well, when you go into a bar, they can ask you for ID to make sure that you're
Yes.
19.
But we're talking a coffee shop.
I know. Well, could they not end up putting a regulation, a rule in that a coffee shop that sells cannabis has to ask for ID going in the door, just like what we do here in Canada?
I think they're probably within their rights to say that there has to be an age limit, but to say that you have to approve that you're not a tourist is a whole different thing.
Know. Yeah. Show ID. Show ID
Yeah.
as far as where you live.
Yeah,
You know,
that's a weird thing to me.
Yeah, we go to our town dump. There's a sign on the sign at the bottom. It
Yeah.
says that at any time they could ask you for your tax roll number to prove that you are a local citizen to use the dump.
Yeah, I can kind of see that in a way because there was a whole bunch of problems over in the Bewdley dump with people coming from all over the place and using that dump. And it's only designed for the locals. So I kind of see that, but I can't see, it's almost like German. Where's your papers? In Germany. Yeah.
All right. Let's see here. The mayor stressed that she remains open, hospitable, as well as tolerant, but at the same time would make life more difficult for people involved in criminal affairs, she says.
Well, why don't you target the criminals then?
Yeah, target the criminals. Don't target your tourists. Are all your tourists criminals?
Yeah.
Like,
however, back then, Halsema stressed that such a plan would take months in order to be revived after there would be need to be a period of consultation and transition for owners of the coffee shops. Is there some kind of, you're going to pay them off too? Is that what you're going to do?
I don't know. I don't. It just doesn't. Yeah, exactly. Here we in Canada, we want lounges, and over there they're closing them.
Yeah.
Like, come on. It just doesn't make sense.
I can't see it lasting after they realize that their tourist dollars diminish and the businesses no longer have tax dollars coming into the government.
Or don't exist anymore.
Yeah.
All those, there's 100 stores. They want to say goodbye to all those employees, all that stuff.
Yeah. If there probably eight or so employees per shop. So you're talking about 800 people out of a job.
Yeah. Exactly. Wow. All right, on to our next story. Let's ask the question from the Fresh Toast. It says, is sticky weed a good or bad sign?
Well, one good rule of thumb to determine if your cannabis is sticky or wet is a quick smell test. Properly cured and sticky weed should smell potent and fresh.
Wet? What are you getting at here? We don't wet. There are so many types of cannabis on the market these days that many consumers have stopped trying to keep up which strain is which. In fact, it can feel like every time you go to a dispensary, there's a brand new list of strain names you've never heard of.
Yeah, and the whole process of choosing from all those new types of cannabis can be a bit overwhelming. If you don't want to choose by name, you might use your nose and smell through the variety buds and see what perks your nostrils. Inevitably, your search will locate a few buds that are sticky. They almost feel like they are oozing a crystallized sap. These buds seem complex and unique and are often fragrant. They can also be sappy, so they are a bit harder to handle.
Considering these factors, likely as you wondering about sticky cannabis, are sticky buds a great trait to have or cause for concern? Now, they say sticky cannabis, if it was dried and cured properly, normally equates to high quality and potent flavor. This is because trichomes are the main contributor to the sticky nug phenomenon. Now, Merriam-Webster defines trichomes as a epidermal hair structure on a plant. So when you see a flower with lots of hairs and what appears to be crystals, you're looking at a plant with a great deal of trichomes. These nuggets will also most likely feel sticky when touched.
Yeah, and where the dry buds lack trichomes, the sticky buds have an overabundance. The long, beautiful hairs collect THC and create a dense, tacky covering on the buds. According to Herb, when you see buds with lots of hairs and feel sticky to the touch, you are likely touching a bud that is packed with THC. In these instances, little sticky weed will go a long way in getting you high. While sticky cannabis can often mean potent, well-cultivated products, it can also mean quite the opposite. Some illegitimate and shady cultivators even try to make their weed appear to be sticky in order to fool their clientele. Because stickier cannabis is associated with higher potency, illegitimate market cultivators can trick their clientele into thinking improperly dried and cured cannabis is sticky, according to Massachusetts-based dispensary. But they can tell people it's sticky. You can feel it's sticky. Once you try it, you know what it is.
That's the thing. Well, hey, I can remember a scenario many moons ago, like 40 years ago, where some younger people like myself at that time went into a plaza, bought some cannabis off of a guy, tried a joint, it was really good. But I'll tell you, that bag that guy sold us, that was different stuff. Yeah. We never even got buzz off of it. You know, it's one of those experiences that 40 years later, here I'm remembering, right?
Yeah. I mean, we've all been there. We've all bought stuff that's no good, right?
Yeah. Now, they say that one good rule of thumb to determine if your cannabis is sticky or wet is a quick smell test. The properly cured sticky cannabis should smell potent and fresh. It will be filled with intense and particular aromas you associate with strong cannabis. Wet, brushed weed will normally have far fewer fragrant notes and will often smell like hay.
Yeah, that's very true. You will also notice the difference over time. One great thing about sticky, well-cured weed is it holds up over time. Rushed and wet weed will deteriorate quickly and may even become toxic and dangerous to smoke. Curing cannabis also extends the shelf life of the product for commercial growers. Uncured cannabis can become moldy and develop mildew, according to Greenhouse Grower.
As always, it's important to purchase your cannabis products from a reliable source. As long as you purchase your sticky cannabis from a trusted dispensary, your bud should be potent, long-lasting, and high quality.
Yep,
there you go. Sticky weed. Sticky weed. Now, not only were we trying to figure out which is sticky and which isn't sticky, what's good or bad, but in our next story from the Fresh Toast also, they want to know, want the best weed in the dispensary? Forget the THC percentage and focus on this instead.
And breeders continue to miss out on a lot by focusing on increasing THC content in cannabis plants instead of terpene profiling. Many argue that the best thing about cannabis is THC, but I believe that the terpenes in this plant are king. Terpenes give the plant their aroma and flavor, and like all consumables, people will hardly consume anything unless it smells good. That's true.
That's right. Close your eyes and imagine the scent of pine emanating from your last Christmas. If you're finding it hard to remember, visit the nearest grocery store or farm and catch the whiffs of the ripe fruits that have just been harvested or stocked. It would do you wonders to capture the unforgettable fragrance of lavender or eucalyptus that hits you when you enter a salon or a spa.
Yeah. My point here is that aroma is directly linked to experiencing nature and the world at large. Any natural place or area you find yourself in has its unique smell. The scent given off in a location can boost your mood or put you off. Aromas help solidify vital memories and also help remember those memories. For instance, when I catch a whiff of strawberries, I remember my late grandparents' farm and the beautiful memories I made there with my siblings and cousins. No matter how faint the aroma is, it can instantly transport you to another location or period.
Yeah. Terpenes are the astounding components responsible for producing these distinct aromas. Notable scientists worldwide have taken time to investigate these compounds and shed more light on their existence. Although the information available is still limited, it's better than nothing.
Yeah, and terpenes are available in most plants and trees like lavender, oranges, roses, mint, and other favorite plant cannabis. In the last decade, very little attention was directed at these compounds, whereas they occupy a crucial position. In the cannabis ecosystem, terpenes play a direct role in cannabis acceptance within the human body. The first sense a consumer comes into contact with when holding cannabis is its aroma. All forms of cannabis, whether indica, sativa, or hybrids, contain terpene compounds. These compounds determine how the entourage effect plays out. They are a key determinant of psychoactive and therapeutic cannabis effects. However, they've not been considered as much as they should be. To understand the interaction of cannabis compounds with receptors in the body, there has to be an in-depth understanding of the vital role terpenes play.
Yeah, a lot of people didn't realize the terpenes are medicinal within the plant. You know, people just thought, oh, it smells good. It's just the smell. But no, that smell that you're smelling, that's got some benefits to it.
It's so true. The thing about if it doesn't smell good, you won't consume it.
Yeah, you know, something that, yeah, exactly. You smell a dish of food that doesn't smell good, are you going to eat it? No. Right? Yeah. Let's see here. Where were we? In the cannabis ecosystem, terpenes, I think you've already touched on that, right? Yeah, there's the entourage effect. Cannabis industry needs to prioritize research of these compounds to improve the quality of their products. The industry is now at a crucial inflection point. By 2028, the global cannabis community will be worth at least $70 billion. Before then, the industry has to come together to study the different compounds in the revered plant. Every actor in the industry, including the breeders, testers, cultivators, retailers, and consumers, needs to prioritize terpene research. They must also try to figure out the other important traits in the cannabis plants that should be prioritized. THC and CBD are not the only important compounds in cannabis, and their study alone will not provide ecosystem with the needed diversity. And more people are talking about the CBG and CBN.
Yep. And why is it important? The cannabis industry has a lot to lose if it continues to prioritize only THC and CBD studies instead of looking into the other vital compounds. The industry needs to clearly understand the unique compounds in all forms of cannabis plants. For starters, cannabis testing labs can focus on extracting and investigating the most dominant terpenes. This would save the industry from missing out on tapping into hundreds of diversities. The less common terpenes can be considered as soon as more information has been gathered on dominant terpene compounds.
Regular cannabis consumers probably have no inkling or understanding of how the knowledge of terpene compounds could boost the breeding and testing niche in cannabis production lines. The absence of useful information has been detrimental to breeders. Majority of them do not understand why after panes are formed in cannabis, as they cannot directly correlate this to genetics. Working with a few terpene profiles would show them better ways to improve cannabis genetics instead of focusing only on cannabinoids and their content levels.
Sounds like that after panes was supposed to be terpenes.
Yeah, I know, but it's that's the way it's on there. I'm going, what?
Yeah.
Go back to what? That doesn't sound right.
Yeah, I think those two words weren't supposed to be there. The cannabis industry has several misconceptions related to the potency of cannabis products. In the last 10 to 20 years, many breeders have focused on creating products with high THC content rather than genetic diversity. Consumers believe that the skunky aroma of such cannabis strains indicates high THC levels. I'm afraid that's not right. The intense skunky smell can be traced to sulfuric compounds present in the plant. Proper terpene profiling would be a far more accurate way to get information about various induced effects. Breeders continue to miss out on a lot as the focus is on increasing THC content in cannabis plants. In contrast, they should be looking into the champagne of supreme powerhouse cannabis, which are the terpene compounds.
Now, the parents give plants, fruits, spices, and flowers unique flavors and aromas. Some of the dominant terpenes include linalool, myrcene, pinene, and limonene. The best thing for cannabis operators to do is to look into prospects of creating diversity through terpenes. This would prevent cannabis from going through the same path as tomatoes. Tomatoes are a prime example of what happens when a traditional market focuses more on increasing yield than improving the flavor and aroma profiles. Tomatoes in the U.S. are more or less the same genetically. There is little or no genetic diversity in the breeding process, and no industry wants that. I think it's a great idea to highlight the terpenes.
I think it is too, and I think their example of the tomatoes is spot on. If you've noticed over the last 10, 15 years, tomatoes lost most of their flavor.
Yeah.
The tomatoes we get at the market now are almost flavorless. It's weird.
Are they?
Yeah. I mean, it depends where you go, but they're not like they used to be when I was a kid. That's for sure.
Wow.
Or when you go to another country, if you notice, like the fruits and vegetables you eat in South America or Jamaica are way better tasting than the fruits that we have from here.
No, they haven't been. They haven't. The ones in Jamaica and other countries haven't been sitting in transit for the last week.
Yeah,
picked ahead of time, so that they're almost ripe when they get to the grocery store.
Yeah,
yeah,
and way less pesticides in it. More information about the terpene profiles of cannabis plants will help breeders generate varying collections of cannabis genetics. As an industry, breeders and other cannabis operators must decide to learn more about which dominant or less common terpenes produce different aromas.
Yeah.
The breeders can then take the next step by accessing those reports to grow genetically diverse plants with sufficient terpene levels.
Exactly. You know, grow. You know, you zoom in on those terpenes and the flavors and the benefits of those, and then that will also help the medical end and help people when they're choosing what strains that they're wanting.
Well, I'll tell you, it helps me a lot. I personally love the flavor of a kind of skunky weed or kind of skunky cannabis. I tend to consume that a lot more than I would something that smells like hay.
Yeah. I don't want anything that smells like hay. That's for sure. That's right. All righty, on to our last story of the day. And this is one a little bit different. And this says that Numinus to enter U.S. psychedelic market via a $26.2 million Novamind acquisition.
And Vancouver-based psychedelics company Numinus Wellness Inc. Is set to enter the American market after acquiring a Canadian mental health company with psychedelic-assisted therapy clinics in Arizona and Utah. On Tuesday, the psychedelics focused company announced it will enter into an agreement to acquire all of the issued and outstanding common shares of Novamind Inc.
Toronto headquartered Novamind provides ketamine-assisted psychotherapy at its 6 clinics, with 2 more to be open soon. In Utah, though, its wholly owned subsidiary, Cedar Psychiatry, it also operates 2 clinics in Arizona via its subsidiary Phoenix Clinics.
I don't know much about ketamine.
I've heard of it. I don't know a lot about it either, but I have heard of it. Yeah.
One transaction closes around June. The combined company will operate 13 psychedelic-assisted therapy clinics in the United States and Canada, as well as 4 clinical research sites and 1 bioanalytical lab. Under the agreement, shareholders of Novamind will receive 0.84 cents of a common share of Numinus for each Novamind share held at a price of 0.44 per Novamind share. After the transaction finishes, Novamind shareholders will hold about 18% ownership.
It's 44 cents. That's not very much money for a share.
No.
You know, it's I got in my email recently, I got from my bank that's telling me to invest in psychedelic companies.
Wow.
Yeah, I went, wow. I took a screenshot of that. I couldn't believe it, but there you go.
That's surprising for a bank.
Yeah, exactly. It's a big bank. The company will host MDMA clinical trials in partnership with the Muscularity Association of Psychedelic Studies Public Benefit Corporation, psilocybin trials with the Usona Institute, LSD research with MindMet, and ketamine in partnership with University of Utah.
Wow, they're all over the map, these guys.
Yeah, exactly. You're getting involved in a bunch of different drugs there. No doubt about that.
It'll provide services such as ketamine-assisted psychotherapy, esketamine treatments, transcranial magnetic stimulation, talk therapy, group therapy, medication management, psychedelic palliative care, and neurological care.
The Novamind acquisition presents a transformational opportunity for Numinus to launch a strong U.S. platform through 8 established, reputable, efficiently operating and revenue-producing clinics, according to their CEO, Peyton Nyquist.
And we prioritize working with the best partners in the industry, and Novamind's U.S. market presence, complementary client programming, and respected clinical research capabilities allows us to accelerate our strategic growth plans and broaden access to healing and wellness. Numinus Bioscience, the company's research branch, is licensed by Health Canada to possess, produce, sell, export, research, and access a wide range of psychedelic drugs such as DMT, ketamine, LSD, MDMA, mescaline, cyclobin, ayahuasca.
Yeah, correct. Yep.
That's a word. San
Isn't
Pedro.
it? You did good on it.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, Novamind CEO Yaron Conforti says the transaction offers significant value for their shareholders and provides opportunities for its employees, patients, and research partners. He says that the combination of Novamind's network of mental health clinics and research sites in the U.S. and Numinus leadership in psychedelic-assisted psychotherapy in Canada creates a best-in-class company, he says.
And the combined entity is supported with over 50 million in pro forma capital and positioned with distinct capabilities to serve a growing and diverse group of stakeholders.
Yeah. There you go. Well, it's coming more and more. Like, I can remember the days when I was younger where you could go to a local bar and pick up some of those name drugs like LSD.
Yeah, I haven't seen really that in years and years. I
haven't gone to a bar in years either.
Yeah, same with me.
But yeah, there was a time that they were available. So, but yeah, there was one thing that we didn't touch on that I saw that came up on my phone here during the broadcast, and that has to do with a court case here in Canada where there was some people that were killed, and the driver was impaired on cannabis. And in that trial, the driver had 40 nanograms of THC in his system. And some people were killed in it. In the accident, the judge ruled in the case that the 5 nanogram limit that we have for impairment here in Canada is constitutional.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and what I'm seeing here on my Twitter feed is some lawyers are saying, "What? We hope this is appealed."
I think it has to be appealed because there's some of us here that will never be under that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
It doesn't matter if I consumed that hour or 4 hours before. I will never be under that.
Yeah, you're gonna have to wait a month or two before you can drive down to the store to get milk.
Like when I was driving a truck, we had to do a random drug test because of the U.S. And I tested positive after 31 days of not consuming. So I don't think it was a great amount that was still in my system, but how's that possible? That mean I would never drive again. I would never, be able to do anything that you can't do, under the influence, even though I'm not under the influence.
Exactly. Now we won't have a Reefer Reporters on Monday because of the long weekend, but next Thursday when we get together, I'll be looking for this story and see if we can find some information, and there might be some more information added to it as far as what's going on here with this impaired driving with the 5 nanograms being constitutional.
I'm definitely interested in that story.
Yeah. So am I. Well, that's our report, Reefer Report for April the 14th, 2022. And in closing, we'd like to say thank you for watching or listening to our Cannabis News broadcast. Until the next time, don't forget to educate, medicate, and do not incarcerate.
Oh yeah, baby. That's lovely.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The views expressed by the individuals during this broadcast are their own opinions, and they may not be the same as those of their group or other organizations they may be involved with.
BMA Hydroponics has everything you need to succeed. Visit our hydroponics superstore at 404 Maitland Drive in Belleville, and we'll show you how to grow your own quality cannabis for pennies per gram. We're open Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Thursdays and Fridays from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. Call 613-967-9888. BMA Hydroponics. It's worth the drive.
The only way to go.
At Legacy 420, we believe in being different.
Experience the difference of quality control.
Our labs provide tested formulations for all of our products.
Experience the difference in trust.
Our customers can trust that we are following up-to-date COVID precautions for their safety.
Experience the difference in accessibility.
We're open 7 days a week. Please visit our website, legacy420.com, or contact us for curbside pickup as well as nationwide mail order shipping.
Legacy 420 values overall wellness.
Come and experience the difference of Legacy 420.
Did you know that the Pace Radio Network isn't just a radio network? That's right, because most, but not all of our programming is now done via video and is then podcasted at paceradio.net. So if you want to watch our programming, you'll find us on the Pace Radio Network's Facebook page, plus the show's own page, and you'll find us live on the network's YouTube channel. And don't forget, you can find it all, video and audio, at paceradio.net.
A doctor's job is to relieve your pains. And when it comes to growing cannabis, the biggest pain is trimming. Let Dr. Buck Cannabis Trimming Solutions take the pain away. Whether you're a home grower or a commercial operation, we have the cure. From 4 plants to 400 plants, garden size doesn't matter. Dr. Buck Cannabis Trimming Solutions comes to you with years of experience and professional discreet service. It's simple. We trim your weed and we do a damn good job. Visit drbuckcts.com to book your trimming.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.